Hi, everyone. In the previous video, I focused on Donald Trump as a person. He's obviously the post that he published in Truth Social about the Obamas on as monkeys, a very racist post. I talked about the Central Park Five, and I talked about his worldview and his relationship to power, and why change is simply unlikely. In this second part, I want to widen the lens because this is no longer just about one man. It's about what happens to a democracy when its norms, its institutions, and its moral assumptions are being tested to their limits. To understand that, I want to revisit moments like birtherism and question what they reveal about power, about race, and about legitimacy. Another clear expression of Donald Trump's racism and of the worldview I have described is the birther movement. Around 2010, Donald Trump became the central figure behind the claim that Barack Obama was not born in the in the United States, and therefore was not a legitimate president. This was not a marginal rumor. It was an actual campaign, a sustained effort to delegitimize the first Black president of the United States. At its core, birtherism rested on a single, deeply revealing assumption that a Black man could not rightfully occupy the highest office in the land. That's what birtherism is really about. As I mentioned in the previous video, in Trump's worldview, the most powerful position in the world must belong to a white man. Barack Obama's presidency violated this internal, long-standing order for Donald Trump. And so when reality clashes with this distorted worldview, well, reality must be attacked, right? And so Trump attempted to discredit Obama's legitimacy. He demanded proof, he questioned his origins, he fueled suspicion, he fueled resentment, all of it designed to restore a sense of order that aligned with his belief system. This was not about paperwork at all. It was all about power. It was about refusing to accept that American democracy could elevate someone who did not fit his image of dominance, a Black man. And he's so much engrossed in this supremacist worldview that he must have believed since 2008 that you can indeed have widespread fraudulent elections in the United States. This is why I'm not surprised by the racist imagery he posted 2 days ago. Again, it belongs to the same continuum. What may surprise people, though, is how primitive this racism is. Let's not forget, depicting Black people as monkeys is one of the oldest, most crude racial tropes in history. It is racism in its most basic, animalizing form. If we can somehow imagine a spectrum between subtle systemic racism and overt brutal racism, this sits at the most archaic end. And that is precisely what has shocked so many people. In 2026, racism often operates through coded language, through policies, through exclusions that can be denied or obscured. What Trump posted bypasses all of that. It reaches back to centuries-old logic of slavery, to a time when Black people were seen as less human. And what people are reacting to is not just the image itself, but the fact that the most powerful man in the world is capable of expressing such raw ignorance and such moral degradation without restraint. And so it forces a confrontation with something deeply unsettling, that this kind of racism has reached the presidency openly. So I'm hoping that this can be a turning point, although I've been hoping this about a lot of things that Donald Trump has done and said over the past 10 years. But this post was published at the same time as documents connected to the Epstein case were being released, albeit very redacted. And it's been reported that Donald Trump's name appears tens of thousands of times in these Epstein files. The convergence of these two events, the release of the Epstein files with Trump heavily mentioned in them, and this racist post that he published in Truth Social, has unsettled some parts of Trump's own MAGA base. What was likely intended as a distraction has essentially created a lot of discomfort and tension and doubt. And for the first time in a long time, some supporters, hardcore supporters of Donald Trump, appear to be questioning not just his decisions, but his stability. I think that Donald Trump is losing control. For me, he's losing it. This has been visible for months. The erratic behavior, the escalating rhetoric, the inability to self-regulate, the ability to self-control, all of it points to the fact that he's under strain, he's unable to contain his impulses, and he is revealing his worst instincts. And so this is not simply a political problem anymore. It becomes a constitutional one. So where do we go from here? Trump eventually removed the racist post from Truth Social, but from my perspective, this is no consolation at all. It was not removed out of remorse, but more out of strategy, because unlike many of his previous outrageous posts, this one caused a backlash and a level of condemnation that exceeded what he anticipated. And because he remains responsible, at least formally, for governing a divided nation, in a sense, this widespread condemnation forced him to remove the post. However, removing it does not equal accountability. He hasn't apologized. He will not apologize. And so I don't think that any change in his character is coming. Donald Trump is not going to transform. He's 80 years old. His character is fixed. And so what we are witnessing is not a phase. It is a culmination. So this raises the question of impeachment again. In theory, impeachment exists, but in practice, it's extraordinarily difficult to achieve. We've seen it during his first term. It requires political will, it requires numbers, and it requires consensus that is sustained, all of which are very uncertain. And if the midterm elections at the end of this year shift the balance of power toward the Democrat in the Senate, there is no guarantee that impeachment would succeed. However, what is becoming increasingly clear is that his position is becoming more and more untenable every day in the court of public opinion. There is, unfortunately, a high likelihood that a pedophile is sitting in the Oval Office and is the most powerful man in the world. And that cannot be. A democracy can survive many things. What it struggles to survive is a leader who consistently erodes not just laws, but norms, the unspoken rules of decency, of restraint, of moral responsibility that institutions rely on to function. A lot of people cannot fathom this as a possibility that we let continue as a state of the presidency in the US. At least 2 million more Epstein files are to be released, which means the potential to have Trump's name mentioned many more times is there. This creates in the consciousness of the American people the image of a very depraved and sick human being who shouldn't be holding the office of the presidency, who shouldn't be the most powerful man in the world, who shouldn't be at the command of nuclear weapons. So yeah, we live in strange times. And so where do we go from here? Well, American democracy is being tested again. It was tested on January the 6th, 2021. It is being tested now in different ways, in a slower way, but in an equally corrosive way. Many norms that govern the US presidency were never written into the Constitution. They were assumed, passed on from one presidency to the next. However, Trump's character exists outside of those assumptions of decency, of restraint, and of moral responsibility. And so there's nothing that could have predicted such a wild card when the founding fathers were writing the Constitution back in the late 18th century. Now Trump exposes the fragility of the Constitution, and that raises difficult questions. Questions like, are constitutional safeguards sufficient today? Do systems designed 2 centuries ago have the resilience to withstand this kind of leadership today? Given the dire state of affairs in the US currently, it's clear that something has to change, something must evolve, a solution must be found. So I want to leave you with one final thought, and it's a quote from one of the books by Neil Donald Walsh in his Conversations with God. And the quote is, "All attack is a call for help." This means that harmful actions and anger and judgment are rooted in fear rather than love. They are acting as a cry for assistance rather than pure malice. Obviously, this does not excuse any harm, but it helps us understand it. Violence, cruelty, and dehumanization are rooted in fear, not strength. And so the person who attacks is often the person who actually is suffering most deeply, even if they are unaware of it. Donald Trump is a deeply troubled man. He attacks because he cannot face himself. He dehumanizes others because he cannot tolerate his own fragility. And he displays arrogance, he displays grandiosity, he displays domination because deep down, he feels profound self-loathing, even though he's not aware of it. And so over time, this distortion erodes his ability to distinguish right from wrong, because everything must bend to preserve his inner illusion. And he has lost his ability to distinguish truth from falsehood because everything must bend towards his distorted reality. So it is clinical for him. And until that distortion is acknowledged, well, there can be no healing. So thank you for staying with me through this reflection. I hope that it has helped make sense of what we are witnessing, what we've been witnessing over the past 2 days. If this resonated with you, please like, comment, and share. Until the next video. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.